joining me, we have Tom Bell, and he is here to talk with us today a little bit about a Widow's Peak retreat that's coming up in June. And this is going to be held at the Art of Living Retreat Center, where Tom works. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Now, talk with us a little bit about the Art of Living Retreat Center and what it is.
Yeah. Well, the Art of Living Retreat Center is a holistic wellness community built on one of the highest peaks in North Carolina. Only about 18 miles from here.
Okay, just a short 18 miles.
Yeah, but people come from all over the world to see our extraordinary architecture. People spend a weekend retreat there to sort of unplug and get away from things. We have an Ayurvedic spa, we have hiking trails, different lodging options, and a real nice restaurant with an organic garden that so all wholesome vegetarian food.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
This sounds like a very relaxing place to go and get away.
It is. That's the notion of a retreat center. Most of us are accustomed to the world of resorts if you want to take a vacation. But if you think about how much time you spend, doing this,
right,
or this, or this,
yes,
a retreat center is a great way to unplug and remove some of those distractions in life and get back to nature, get back to the things that are really important.
Definitely, and that's a great point. A lot of times we think vacation, going to some kind of place where you're going to be busy and doing all kinds of different activities, but sometimes a vacation needs to be doing absolutely nothing and just relaxing.
Right. You can wind up more exhausted when you return from a vacation.
Exactly. You need a vacation to get recovered from your vacation.
Yeah.
Now, how long has the Art of Living Retreat Center been around?
Just about 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's it was purchased, I guess, a little over 2 years ago, 28 months. So we've renovated the facility. It's got 18 buildings. It's 360 acres.
Wow.
And really what we're doing now is we're starting to bring in groups and organizations from all over the world that kind of mirror our mission, which is to uplift humanity by reducing stress. So that can be any number of things. There's workshops, there's authors, there's teachers, and there's organizations that choose to rent out our facility.
Very neat. Now, we have an event that's coming up in June. Talk with us a little bit about this.
We do. Widow's Peak Retreat is just a little over 4 weeks away. And Widow's Peak Retreat is a 3-day experiential retreat designed specifically for people who have lost a loved one or a spouse and are looking to take a meaningful step forward in their lives. The promise of the experience is upliftment, and it's an opportunity to create new beginnings.
Very neat.
Yeah.
So talk with us a little bit about the retreat and what these few days are going to be like.
Yeah, how do we create new beginnings?
Right.
We do that in a number of ways. I guess the first one is just being up there. As we talked about, the pristine mountain air, the vegetarian cuisine, and just kind of being, getting off the hamster wheel of your life.
Right.
And we feel like that's healing in and of itself. Second, we have 8 different presenters coming from all over, authors, teachers, thought leaders, different experts in their field of grief awareness. Even a double Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter is coming.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll talk more about them in a minute, I'm sure. But the third way is just through activities. And I hate to use the word conference because it makes my rear end sore.
A lot of sitting typically.
Seems like a lot of sitting and long, boring talk. So
Right.
I think retreat experience is the best thing we've come up with. We want to pack a lot of collaborative activities in there. So we have a number of things. When they're not working with one of the mentors and instructors, participants can stroll around the grounds. They can receive body work at our Ayurvedic spa. They can attend like a healthy cooking demonstration.
Very cool.
They can work in our organic garden. Not that we're trying to get free labor.
But you can.
But for
if you want to.
some folks, they've said this sounds like a healing activity.
Yeah.
And we don't really know what those things are that are going to create moments of insight and awareness and upliftment in someone whose heart's a little broken. But we're looking for all the different directions. And another one, I don't know if you've ever written a poem.
I think I have at some point throughout school. It may not have been a very good one.
In my case, a really bad one.
Yeah.
Or a journal entry, or maybe painted something and you found your mood elevated as a result.
Yes.
And so we're looking at some of those alternative grief methods that can lift people up. So we have a potter's wheel and an opportunity to create watercolors looking at our 100-mile view and things of that nature. So we're looking to create a lot of those moments, knowing that each person grieves a little differently.
Absolutely.
There's not a 12-step process. Grief is not linear. And so people are coming from all over the country and saying, you know, I don't quite understand this thing,
Right.
but I want to be a part of it.
Very neat.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there is some structure, but there's still a lot of room for people to kind of work on an individual basis.
Exactly. There is some panel discussions, and the lectures are kept to 20 minutes max.
Okay, that's good to
So
know.
yeah, so it's collaborative. It's shoulder to shoulder. We're calling our presenters mentors. One of the rules we have is that they don't just get to come and do a talk.
Right.
They come on Thursday night and leave Monday morning. So they're there. They're eating with the participants, and they're
Right.
really ingrained in the subject matter. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now talk with us a little bit about this year's mentors and who they are and what they're going to be talking about.
Yeah, well, there's 8 of them, so I hate to pick favorites, but I got to start off with a woman named Audrey Pellicano.
Okay.
And she calls herself the Wise Widow, wisewidow.com, and she has a radio show that she does every week. And Audrey became a widow at age 37 with 4 young children.
Wow.
And she's sort of the inspiration for Widow's Peak, because what she did was she found out the traditional grief methods weren't working for her.
Right.
They have their place, but a lot of that is saying, you know, it's been 3 months, why don't you get over it?
Right.
Or let's not talk about it. People unknowingly kind of put grief in the closet. So what Audrey did was pretty remarkable. She set out to find a healing path for herself by exploring different methodologies. And then she became certified expert in some of those things, like visualization and guided imagery.
Right.
Yoga, believe it or not, stretching your body and opening up your posture has a really positive effect on grief. We talked about creativity.
Right.
And then another one is breathing.
Yes.
Believe it or not, the power of the breath and different techniques they call pranayama can have amazing effects on grief. So Audrey Pellicano is kind of been the inspiration for it. And I met Audrey because my mother, who I've known for a very long time.
Basically your whole life.
Yes, more or less, was a guest on Audrey's show.
Okay.
And then so as a good son, I was listening to my mom on Audrey's talk show, and I thought, geez, this is something that would really fit in well with our retreat center. My mother is Lorna Bell, and she's a hospice nurse.
Okay.
So it's kind of in my blood, it's in my DNA. She's worked with grief and people that are transitioning through their life. I think she assisted in 300 different deaths.
Wow.
And she wrote 3 books on that experience,
Okay.
which she calls Happy Endings. And so she started to catalog what she calls extraordinary deaths, or beautiful deaths, deaths that show the existence of angels. She has a chapter that the animals and nature are in on it.
Okay.
So oftentimes the family dog or the birds outside the window will have an awareness of that passing. And so I edited her books, and I was obviously a big fan of them. And she puts on a really nice workshop called Truths from the Lips of the Dying.
Okay.
And she shares what she's learned. It'll put a few tears on your cheek,
I bet
but it's
so.
also that feeling of upliftment, because we believe we don't really die, we transition.
Right.
So Lorna Bell, I gave her more time than I got to give her a little more extra.
Talk up
And
mom.
then a woman named Beth Nielsen Chapman. We were really lucky to secure her. These things just kind of all fell together. Beth Nielsen Chapman is a Nashville singer-songwriter. She's written songs. She's been nominated for 2 Grammys recently.
Wow.
Written songs for Elton John and Neil Diamond, and Faith Hill. This Kiss is her tune. So one of those people that's behind the scenes, creating extraordinary art that maybe we just haven't heard of her until now. But she's also a widow.
Okay.
I forgot to mention, most of our 8 presenters, I think 6 out of the 8 of the presenters, are themselves widows.
So they've been through this, they understand.
Exactly. And with Beth, her husband died quite suddenly of cancer, and she had a young child. And she used creativity. She used writing songs and her acoustic guitar, writing poems. And so she does an entire workshop with people. No talent necessary.
Good to know.
Exactly. And you can write a song with her about your experience.
Wow.
She'll have maybe you hum a bar or 2, and she'll play a little bit. And she does this with veterans, by the way, in a different sort of context. But it allows you to tell your story.
Right.
And so much about dealing with grief is expression, creative expression, getting it out.
Right.
And she'll also be playing for us during dinner and doing a little concert each night. But we're so blessed to have Beth Nielsen Chapman.
Wow, sounds
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
Now, who else is presenting?
Yeah, well, there's a gal named Lila Schwartz from Asheville. We're really excited to have her on board because she's been teaching yoga for 30 years.
Okay.
And we feel that that's a nice way to start the morning. Again,
Definitely.
no experience necessary.
Okay.
But doing little things like rotating your wrists and focusing on your breath. And then as you start to open your shoulders and open your throat,
Right.
energy can become stuck here. And you can oftentimes, you see someone who's been grieving, they'll carry themselves in a certain way.
Yeah.
So it's very important to do some light stretching, light breathing every morning, and Lila Schwartz is going to do a terrific job with that.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
So starting every morning off with a little bit of yoga.
5 a.m.
Okay.
Okay, no,
Maybe-
we'll go to 7 or 8. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds a little better. Sounds a little better.
Yeah.
Now, who else?
Ann Farrow is a dear friend of mine, and her husband passed away in October. Jim Farrow was a leader up on the mountain where we are, and so we like to honor Jim and Ann by having her be a part of it. They were also inspirations, and she's a meditation teacher.
Okay.
And she teaches guided visualizations. And if you think, well, geez, how do I can't do that. My mind is so dang busy.
Right.
It's a very light introduction to that. And she calls it love is not an emotion.
Okay.
Love is your very existence. And so when you close your eyes and you focus on your breath, you start to separate a little bit from I'm a widow, that label, I am in grief, to that's just something that's passing over me. Grief is just an emotion that I'm experiencing now.
Right.
And it will pass. And you think of how many emotions you experience throughout the day.
Absolutely.
And so meditation, this basic meditation techniques are really powerful for someone to separate themselves from that emotion a little bit.
Absolutely.
I think I got a couple more.
Okay, there's a few more. There's more.
Good. Angie Cartwright is a hero of mine. As soon as I started researching grief, I came upon a website called Grief the Unspoken. And she's experienced a lot of loss in her life. And rather than, I mean, a lot, like several, and at a fairly young age. And I'm such a fan of hers because she could have went in the closet and,
Right.
you know, and no one would have blamed her for that. But instead, she started National Grief Awareness Day, which is August 30th, the day her mother died. And she's brought a lot of awareness. She has like 400,000 fans on Facebook. And she's an ordinary woman from Kansas who found her passion and found her voice and said, you know what, grief is nothing to be ashamed of. Grief is an essential part of the human experience, and it's been in the closet long enough. You don't need to be ashamed of it. You don't need to move on, and celebrate your humanness.
Right.
And so she's just agreed to come on recently, and we're thrilled to have Angie Cartwright as well. And her website is National Grief Awareness Day.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, she still needs a few hundred signatures for that to pass. So.
All right, you guys out
yeah,
there.
Yeah. I have a feeling I'm sorry, Carol.
It's okay, there's a lot of
Carol
these to keep up
Scabelli
with.
is one of my very favorites people, and she's from New York, so she's very direct, so I'll hear from her shortly. But she wrote a book called Poor Widow Me.
Okay.
And she was actually a successful Broadway playwright, kind of like if you've seen the TV series Seinfeld.
Yes.
She's kind of like the Elaine character.
Okay, love Elaine.
Except for more Italian. And she wrote a book called Poor Widow Me. And she found, as a writer, as she was dealing with her grief, that was her tool, that was her coping mechanism. And it became very powerful for her to step outside of herself and make fun of herself.
Right.
And make fun of this weird situation she found herself in. And she chronicles right from the time her husband was diagnosed with cancer up through, right through the funeral and the whole thing. And it sounds like, geez, she's making fun of. No, it's poignant and heartfelt, but with an element of truth.
Right.
Those universal truths that make everyone smile. And this book went on to have tremendous success. It sold really well, and they're talking about making it into a Broadway play. And so we do believe humor is one of those things that we'll probably have a panel discussion with 3 people on a couch, and she'll be one of them, cracking everyone up. And you think, geez, a grief conference, what are they going to, why are they doing this? Well, it's very important to learn, here's what she says, to give yourself permission to laugh.
Right.
Because it's okay. Like people think, well, geez, I'm a widow, I can't have fun. I can't laugh. I'm supposed to be gloomy and wear black. And Carol, it's very liberating, her work, is to say, you know what, there are elements of this that are rather absurd, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And another piece that comes out of that, speaking of panels, so we'll have kind of one-on-one talks, and then we'll occasionally pair up. I'm starting to see some commonalities. We'll pair up 2 or 3 of them and have a panel.
Okay.
So one of those will be on humor and the use of the need to laugh at yourself. Another one, gratitude is a very powerful emotion. When my mother was overcoming the loss of her sister and her mother, she started a simple practice of writing down 5 or 10 things she was grateful for every morning, which is it's so simple, everyone on the planet should be doing it, right?
Right, exactly.
I'm just thinking, I don't do that as much as I should.
Right.
But just to stop and take stock in what you do have. Mm-hmm. And that's an ongoing theme we're going to see with Widow's Peak is practical tools. We don't want to create this high and then send them home and say good luck.
Yeah.
We want to create this high and say, here is a workbook of each presenter will have, in addition to their content, practical tools that you can take home and apply every day in your life to create more upliftment.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, talk with us a little bit about who can come to this.
Yeah, that's a great question, because once I came across the idea of Widow's Peak, it's not a hairstyle that's coming back into fashion.
Good to know.
Thanks. I really like that idea because, like I said, we're on one of the highest peaks in eastern North America.
Right.
I can see the Charlotte airport from my front porch. It's about 120 miles away. So there is a sense of upliftment, and we want to create peak experiences. That being said, it's not just for widows.
Okay.
What I've learned in this journey is loss takes on many forms. And you know, I lost my border collie a few years ago, and it was rough.
Absolutely.
Gulp.
Yeah, I know, right?
Even the memory of it makes my eyes water a little bit.
Absolutely.
But you know, you can lose your job. You can lose your husband. We have someone who's coming who lost her husband to Alzheimer's. Several years before he actually died, she was experiencing that sort of loss.
Right.
And so, of course, and then there's widowers, a lot of men who have lost their wives. And then another category we're seeing pop up a lot, unfortunately, is veterans' wives.
Right.
And these are young, you know, these are young gals. So we're opening the doors to anyone who feels called, anyone who sees the flyer or hears about us or goes to our website and has that feeling. It's usually very quick. Like I heard from a lady yesterday, I saw your flyer and I picked up the phone and where do I pay? You know, how do I be a part of this? It's not for everyone, but for those folks that are really feeling called, we'll welcome you with open arms.
That's great.
And that also includes, bereavement professionals.
Okay.
Some people in the field of hospice or counseling or grief just want to be a part of it. I could have 25 speakers by now because these people have huge hearts.
Right.
And they just give and give and give of themselves. And they say, you know, I have a pretty stressful job and I could use an opportunity to advance my skills, to learn some of these alternative methods. And so grief professionals are also welcome.
That's great. Now, how do people sign up?
Yeah, the best way is to go to the website, www.widowspeakretreat.org. And that has everything, including a lot more information. You can read the bios of our presenters. You can choose your accommodation styles. We have different types of hotel rooms. And we have what we call retreat-style rooms, which are a little more authentic, where we take away the television and the telephone, if you want to just have your experience.
Right.
And we also are encouraging people to come together.
Right.
We're seeing this. One person will go, I want to do this. And then they'll go, oh, I should invite these 2 friends.
Right.
And so they're coming together. But I'm sorry, to answer your question, the website is an easy way. Also, if you have questions, we have an 800 number.
Okay.
Would you like me to give that now?
Yes, please.
I don't have
all the details.
I don't have that memorized. That would be 1-800-219-7103. And one of our friendly representatives will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. So website or phone number, plenty of ways to get in touch with you guys. And remind us the dates.
June 6th, 7th, and 8th. So,
Sounds great.
yes.
Well, this sounds fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in to talk with us about it.
Thank you for having me, Danielle.
Absolutely. And we will be back right after these messages with more of the Mountain Television Network.